August 1944. The sweltering training beaches of Pavuvu, Solomon Islands. The midday sun beats down on the white sands like a physical weight, baking the mud until it cracks. Lieutenant Mike Kowalski, wipes a mixture of sweat and engine grease from his brow, his utilities soaked through. The air is thick with humidity and the smell of diesel exhaust. Before him, rumbling out of the surf like a prehistoric monster emerging from the deep, is the newest addition to the 1st Armored Amphibian Battalion. To the battle-hardened Marines sitting in the shade of the palms, cleaning their M1 Garands and smoking Lucky Strikes, the machine looks ridiculous. It is a boxy, open-topped tub on treads with a snub-nosed 75mm howitzer turret slopped awkwardly on its back. It wallows in the waves, struggling for traction as it hits the sand. One corporal, a veteran of Guadalcanal, spits into the dirt and laughs. "Look at that thing," he jeers. "It's a bathtub with a gun, a floating coffin."
They expect us to ride that bucket into Tokyo? They call it the walking tank or the water buffalo, but right now it just looks like a target. It lacks the sleek, predatory profile of a Sherman tank or the rugged simplicity of a Jeep. It is the LVT-A4, Landing Vehicle Tracked, Armored, Mark IV. And to the men watching it lurch up the beach, clanking and groaning, it seems like a design by committee gone wrong. The armor is thin, barely enough to stop heavy machine gun fire, let alone an anti-tank round. The open turret leaves the crew exposed to snipers and shrapnel. It is loud, slow, and ungainly. But Lieutenant Kowalski knows something the jeering infantrymen don't. He climbs up the side of the steel beast, feeling the heat radiating off the hull. He drops into the driver's compartment, the smell of oil and hot metal enveloping him. He knows that the war has changed. The days of fighting through dense jungle are giving way to something far more terrifying.
The assault on fortified islands and atolls, where the coral reefs tear the bottoms out of traditional landing craft. The Higgins boats, the famous LCVP landing craft, have a fatal flaw. They get hung up on the reefs hundreds of yards from shore, forcing Marines to wade through chest-deep water into the teeth of Japanese machine guns. Tarawa proved that bloodily enough. The Marines need something that doesn't just float. They need something that can crawl over the sharp coral, swim through the lagoon, and drive right up the beach to blast the enemy bunkers at point-blank range. Kowalski signals the driver to cut the engine. The roar dies down to an idle chug. He looks out at the ocean, imagining the islands that lay ahead. Peleliu, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. He knows the skepticism is rampant. The infantrymen see a clumsy target. The high command sees a logistical nightmare.
But as Kowalski pots the cold steel of the 75mm howitzer, a weapon usually towed by trucks, now mobile and swimming, he realizes this isn't just a transport. It's mobile artillery. It's a sledgehammer designed to crock the hardest nuts the Japanese Empire can build. The skepticism of the infantry is about to be tested against the reality of the Pacific. The men mocking the walking tank today will soon be praying for the sound of its tracks churning through the surf. The training is over. The fleet is assembling. The LVT-A4 is going to war, and its first true test will be a slaughterhouse unlike anything the Marines have yet seen.
September 15th, 1944. 0600 hours, 500 yards off the western beaches of Peleliu. The ocean is black glass in the pre-dawn darkness, barely disturbed by the gentle swells. Lieutenant Kowalski sits hunched in the driver's compartment of LVT-A4 number 347, his hands gripping the controls. Around him, spread across the dark water like a vast floating city, are the ships of the invasion fleet. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and the ungainly LSTs that birthed his platoon of Amphibious tanks just minutes ago. The air smells of salt spray and diesel fumes. In the turret above, Sergeant Ray Hutchins checks the 75mm howitzer one final time, his movements mechanical, practiced. The gunner, Corporal Eddie Martinez from El Paso, loads a high-explosive shell with hands that barely tremble. They can hear it starting before they can see it. The pre-invasion bombardment.
The battleships Pennsylvania and Maryland open up first, their 16-inch guns creating thunder that rolls across the water like the voice of God. Orange fireballs blossom from their barrels, and seconds later, the distant shoreline erupts in massive geysers of coral, sand, and smoke. Cruisers join in, then destroyers. The sky lights up with streaking naval shells, and the island ahead, a jagged piece of coral and limestone called Peleliu, disappears behind a curtain of explosions. "Think there'll be anything left alive over there?" Martinez shouts over the din. Hutchins doesn't answer. He's been through Tarawa. He knows better. At 0730 hours, the signal comes. The first wave of conventional LVTs, cargo variants carrying riflemen, begin their run toward the beach. Kowalski watches them go, their boxy shapes cutting white wakes through the dark water. His job is different. The LVT A4s form a second wave, tasked with providing mobile fire support.
They are to follow the infantry carriers, engage enemy positions with the 75mm, and clear paths through the defenses. On paper, it sounds simple. In practice, Kowalski knows, nothing is simple when the bullets start flying. "All Buffalo units, commence run to Red Beach. Execute, execute, execute." Kowalski pushes the throttle forward. The Continental W670 radial engine roars to life behind him, and the LVT A4 surges forward. The tracks churn water, pushing the 29-ton vehicle through the swells at a painfully slow 4 knots. Around him, 11 other armored Amtracs form a ragged line. The howitzer turrets swivel, scanning for targets. The bombardment continues overhead, a rolling barrage meant to suppress the Japanese defenses. The beach is still hidden by smoke and dust. 300 yards out, Kowalski can finally see the shoreline through his periscope. The naval gunfire has churned the landscape into a moonscape of craters, splintered palm trees, and shattered coral. The first wave of LVTs is hitting the beach now, their rear ramps dropping to disgorge Marines. And that's when the island comes alive. Tracer fire suddenly stitches across the water like angry hornets. Machine guns, dozens of them, open up from positions the naval bombardment never touched. The Japanese have been waiting in deep bunkers carved into the coral ridges, weathering the storm of steel. Now they emerge. Artillery shells begin landing among the cargo LVTs. One takes a direct hit and explodes in a ball of orange flame, sending debris and bodies cartwheeling through the air. Another LVT grinds to a halt, smoke pouring from its engine compartment. Marines bail out into waist-deep water, struggling toward shore as bullets kick up spouts around them. "Contact, pillbox, 11 o'clock, 200 yards, Hutchins screams. Kowalski can see it now. A concrete bunker built into the coral, its firing slits spitting flame. A Japanese machine gun is tearing into the exposed Marines struggling through the surf. Martinez already has the turret traversing. The 75mm howitzer barks, the recoil rocking the entire LVT. The high explosive shell slams into the coral face 10 feet left of the bunker. Coral dust and smoke bloom. Martinez adjusts, fires again. This time the shell punches through the firing aperture and detonates inside. The machine gun goes silent. But there are more, so many more. The beach is a killing ground, and the LVT A4s are doing what they were designed to do, absorbing fire, returning fire, and crawling forward when everything else is pinned down. Kowalski's Amtrac hits the coral reef with a grinding scrape. The tracks grab. They don't stop. They don't need to wait for the tide like the Higgins boats at Tarawa.
The LVT-A4 climbs over the jagged coral shelf, still firing, still moving.
September 15th, 1944, 0812 hours, Red Beach, Peleliu. The tracks of LVT-A4 number 347 bite into the sand with a grinding metallic shriek. Kowalski feels the vehicle lurch upward as it claws its way onto the beach proper, leaving the surf behind. The scene before him is chaos incarnate. Burning Amtracs belch black smoke into the sky. Wounded Marines crawl toward cover behind chunks of blasted coral. The air is thick with the smell of cordite, burning fuel, and something worse, flesh. Dead Japanese soldiers, killed by the naval bombardment, are scattered among the debris like broken dolls, but the living are nowhere to be seen. That's what makes Peleliu different. The Japanese aren't charging with bayonets. They aren't dying in bonsai attacks. They're hidden, dug in, waiting. Move left, behind that ridge. Hutchins pounds on Kowalski's shoulder, pointing toward a 15-foot-high coral outcropping about 70 yards inland. A company of Marines is pinned down there, taking fire from an unseen position. Kowalski yanks the steering levers, and the LVT-A4 pivots, tracks throwing up rooster tails of sand. As they rumble forward, a new sound cuts through the cacophony, the distinctive crack of a Japanese 47mm anti-tank gun. The shell screams past, missing the turret by inches. Martinez and Hutchins duck instinctively. Kowalski feels his heart hammering. The thin armor of the LVT-A4, designed to stop rifle bullets and shrapnel, won't stand up to anti-tank rounds. They're not a Sherman tank. They're a soft target pretending to be hard. "Where the hell is that gun?" Hutchins screams, scanning frantically. A Marine captain, his utilities torn and bloodied, runs up alongside the Amtrac, waving desperately. "Cave entrance, 2 o'clock, base of that ridge. They've got AT guns and mortars dug into the coral." He has to shout to be heard over the engine and the ongoing firefight.
Hutchins spots it, a dark slash in the coral face, partially obscured by debris and camouflage netting. Smoke wisps from the opening. As he watches, another 47mm round lances out, this time striking an unarmored cargo LVT that was trying to withdraw. The shell penetrates the fin hull and explodes inside. The vehicle shudders to a stop, flames already licking from the crew compartment. "HE round, target that cave," Hutchins orders. Martinez traverses the turret, brings the howitzer to bear. The 75mm roars. The shell detonates against the coral face, but the cave is deep. The explosion merely collapses some of the camouflage netting. The anti-tank gun fires again. This time Kowalski feels the impact, a glancing blow against the front glacis plate that sends a shower of sparks into the driver's compartment. The armor holds, barely, but the message is clear. They need to silence that position or die trying. Again, keep firing. Hutchins is loading shells himself now, passing them to Martinez in a desperate rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. The 75mm hammers the cave entrance. Coral chips fly. One shell finds the opening and detonates inside. There's a secondary explosion, ammunition cooking off. The anti-tank gun goes silent. But the LVT-A4 has drawn every Japanese weapon in the area. Rifle bullets plink off the armor like deadly rain. A knee mortar round, a Japanese grenade launcher, lands 10 feet away, showering the open turret with shrapnel. Hutchins grunts, clutching his arm where a fragment has torn through his sleeve. Blood seeps between his fingers, but he keeps working the gun. The Marines who were pinned down are moving now, using the Amtrac as mobile cover. They advance in short rushes, returning fire at muzzle flashes in the coral ridges. An infantry sergeant climbs onto the side of the LVT-A4, pounds on the hull. "You crazy bastards are keeping us alive."
There's another bunker complex 30 yards ahead. Can you crack it? Kowalski doesn't wait for orders. He pushes forward. The LVT-A4 is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Not just transport Marines to the beach, but fight alongside them, providing the close fire support that tanks can't deliver because tanks can't swim. The skeptics back at Pavuvu are wrong. This isn't a floating coffin, it's a lifeline. But Peleliu isn't finished with them yet. As they grind toward the bunker complex, Kowalski spots movement in his peripheral vision. A Japanese soldier emerging from a spider hole, a satchel charge in his hands. The enemy is adapting too. If they can't penetrate the armor with bullets, they'll get close enough to blow the entire vehicle apart. Martinez sees him at the same moment. He swings the 50 caliber machine gun mounted alongside the howitzer and opens fire. The heavy rounds cut the Japanese soldier down before he can throw the charge.
The satchel detonates harmlessly in the sand, throwing up a geyser of coral fragments. "They're everywhere," Martinez yells, his voice cracking with strain. "We can't watch all directions at once." He's right. The open turret that allows the crew to operate the gun also leaves them exposed to grenades, snipers, and close assault tactics. Another LVT-A4, 50 yards to their right, takes a satchel charge directly into the crew compartment. The explosion is devastating. The vehicle lurches to a stop, its turret crew dead or dying. Kowalski realizes something in that moment, watching the smoke rise from the destroyed Amtrac. The LVT-A4 isn't invincible, it's vulnerable, but it's also irreplaceable. Without these machines, the Marines would still be dying in the surf, cut down before they ever reached the sand. The walking tank the men mocked is now the only thing standing between complete disaster and a foothold on this hellish island.
September 15th, 1944, 10:45 hours, inland from Red Beach, Peleliu. The sun is high now, turning the interior of LVT-A4 number 347 into a steel oven. Kowalski's uniform is soaked through with sweat, clinging to his skin. The temperature inside the crew compartment hovers near 120 degrees. Every breath tastes of diesel fumes and gunpowder residue. His hands are blistered from gripping the hot control levers, but he doesn't dare let go. They've been fighting continuously for over 3 hours, and the beach that seemed like hell itself now lies behind them. Ahead is something worse. The 1st Marine Regiment is pushing inland toward an objective marked on the maps as the Point, a commanding coral ridge studded with fortifications. The Japanese have turned the entire ridge into a fortress. Pillboxes, bunkers, interconnected tunnels, pre-sighted kill zones. Every yard costs blood.
And the LVT-A4s are being asked to do the impossible. Provide the firepower of a tank destroyer while operating in terrain that would challenge a mountain goat. Buffalo 347, this is Badger 6 Actual. The radio crackles to life. It's Colonel Lewis Puller himself, Chesty Puller, the legendary Marine commander. We've got a strong point at grid coordinates 447891, reinforced concrete bunker with interlocking fields of fire. 2 rifle companies are stuck. Can your people crock it? Hutchins, his wounded arm hastily bandaged with a torn t-shirt, keys the handset. His voice is hoarse from shouting over the gun's roar. Badger 6, we'll give it a try, but we need infantry support. Japs are getting close with demo charges. You'll have it. Out. Kowalski navigates the Amtrac through a nightmare landscape. The coral is sharp and uneven, jutting up in ridges and dropping into sudden depressions. Twice the LVT-A4 nearly tips over as one track climbs higher than the other.
Destroyed Japanese equipment litters the ground. Shattered trucks, abandoned artillery pieces, the burned-out hulk of a light tank. Bodies are everywhere, American and Japanese both, already bloating in the tropical heat. They find the bunker exactly where Puller said it would be. It's a massive structure, built into the base of a coral cliff, with walls at least 3 feet thick. The firing ports are narrow slits, almost invisible,
until the machine guns inside open up. Kowalski watches a squad of Marines try to advance and get cut down immediately. The survivors scramble back to cover, dragging their wounded. "That thing's a fortress," Martinez says quietly, staring at the bunker through the gun sight. 75 millimeter might not even scratch it. "We don't have a choice," Hutchins replies. He's lost blood and his face is pale, but his jaw is set. "Get us within 100 yards ski. We'll put rounds through those firing ports until something gives."
Kowalski inches the LVT-A4 forward, using destroyed vehicles and coral outcroppings for concealment. The bunker's machine guns shift toward them immediately. Bullets drum against the frontal armor like hail on a tin roof. Most bounce off, but some penetrate the thinner side plates, whining through the crew compartment. A round passes so close to Kowalski's head that he feels the sonic crack against his ear. At 90 yards, Martinez opens fire. The first 75 millimeter shell hits the concrete face dead center and explodes in a shower of sparks and dust. The bunker is unmarked. The second shell, aimed at a firing port, misses by inches and detonates against the cliff face above. The third hits the port directly. There's a flash from inside, and one of the machine guns goes silent. But the second gun keeps firing. "We're not penetrating," Martinez yells in frustration. "The concrete's too thick." Hutchins is already thinking. He grabs the radio handset.
"Badger 6. The bunker's reinforced beyond our capability. We need engineers with satchel charges and flamethrowers. We can suppress the firing ports, but we can't destroy it." "Understood, 347. Suppress and hold position. Engineers are moving up." For the next 20 minutes, the LVT-A4 sits exposed, trading fire with the bunker. Martinez keeps the 75 millimeter howitzer aimed at the firing slits, firing whenever he sees muzzle flash. The Japanese can't penetrate the Amtrac's frontal armor at this range, but they're trying. The constant hammering of bullets is nerve-shredding. Kowalski watches his instruments, praying the engine doesn't overheat or take a lucky shot. Then the engineers arrive, a dozen Marines carrying pole charges, satchel explosives, and 2 men with flamethrowers strapped to their backs. They use the LVT-A4 as cover, advancing in its shadow.
When they're within 30 yards of the bunker, Hutchins shifts fire, hammering the coral face above the fortification to shower the firing ports with debris and keep the Japanese gunners' heads down. A Marine sergeant dashes forward and jams a pole charge against the bunker's wall, then sprints away. The explosion is tremendous, cracking the concrete and collapsing one entire corner of the structure. A flamethrower operator rushes in, his weapon spewing liquid fire through the damaged wall. Screams erupt from inside, horrible, inhuman sounds that make even the hardened Marines wince. The bunker falls silent. "Target neutralized," Hutchins reports, his voice flat. There's no triumph in it, just exhaustion. But there's no time to rest. The radio crackles again. "All Buffalo units, enemy counterattack forming in Sector 7. Infantry needs immediate fire support. Multiple targets, close range." Kowalski pivots the LVT-A4 and drives toward the new crisis.
Around them, the other surviving Amtracs are doing the same, lumbering across the broken coral, their howitzers swinging toward new threats. The vehicle the Marines mocked as a bathtub with a gun has become the glue holding the assault together. Without the LVT-A4's mobile firepower, the advance would have stalled on the beach. The landing would have failed. But the cost is mounting. Of the 12 armored Amtracs that landed with Kowalski's platoon, only 7 are still operational. 2 are burning wrecks on the beach. 3 more are disabled with mechanical failures or combat damage. The crews are exhausted, wounded, running on adrenaline and determination. And Peleliu still isn't secured. The worst fighting, The month-long nightmare in the Ummerbrogel Ridges lies ahead.
September 18th, 1944. 16:30 hours. Forward Assembly Area, Peleliu. 3 days into the battle, and the island has become a charnel house. Lieutenant Kowalski sits on the rear deck of LVT A4, number 347, his boots dangling over the side, a canteen of lukewarm water in his hands. The Amtrac is parked in a depression behind the front lines, if you can call them lines. Peleliu has no front. The Japanese are above, below, and sometimes behind the Marines, emerging from caves and tunnels that honeycomb the coral ridges like a termite mound. The vehicle looks like it's been through a metal shredder. The hull is pockmarked with bullet impacts. A jagged gouge across the turret marks where a 47mm round grazed without penetrating. The left track has been replaced twice after being blown apart by mines. One of the vision blocks is shattered, but the Continental engine still runs, and the 75mm howitzer still fires. That makes it operational. Sergeant Hutchins is being evacuated.
The shrapnel wound in his arm has become infected in the tropical heat, and the battalion surgeon insists he needs proper treatment or risk losing the limb. A young corporal named Danny Rizzo, barely 20 years old, fresh from stateside training, will take his place in the turret. Kowalski watches Hutchins climb into a Jeep ambulance, his good arm raised in a tired wave. They don't speak. There's nothing to say that hasn't already been said in the intimate brutality of the last 72 hours. Martinez emerges from beneath the Amtrac, his hands black with grease. "Transmission's making noise," he reports, wiping his palms on his already filthy utilities. "She's not going to last much longer. We're asking her to do things she wasn't designed for." He's right. The LVT A4 was built for amphibious assault, to cross the beach, deliver fire support, and withdraw.
It wasn't meant to operate inland for days at a time, grinding over coral that tears at the tracks, squeezing through spaces meant for infantry, taking fire from every direction. But there are no Sherman tanks available. The terrain is too broken, too steep. Only the Amtracs can maneuver here, and so they fight on. A captain from the 1st Marines approaches, his map case tucked under one arm. His name is William Sterling, and his eyes have the 1,000-yard stare Kowalski has seen in every combat veteran's face. "Lieutenant, we need your vehicle tomorrow for a push on the Ummerbrogel pocket. Intelligence says there are between 500 and 1,000 Japs dug into those ridges." He pauses, looking at the battered Amtrac. "Think she'll make it?" Kowalski doesn't hesitate. "She'll make it, sir. We'll make it." Sterling nods slowly. The brass is watching this operation closely. The LVT A4 wasn't supposed to be a frontline combat vehicle.
"You people are writing the doctrine as you go." He taps his map. "After this is over, assuming any of us survive, they're going to study what you've done here, how mobile artillery support changed amphibious warfare. But right now, I just need you to keep that gun firing." After he leaves, Kowalski and Martinez sit in silence, listening to the distant crump of artillery and the occasional rattle of small arms fire. New replacement crews are arriving for the destroyed Amtracs, young men who look terrified and eager in equal measure. Kowalski remembers being that young once, weeks ago, when this was still theoretical. "Hey, Ski," Martinez says quietly. "You remember what that corporal said back at Pavuvu? Called us a floating coffin?" "Yeah. Wonder what he thinks now." Kowalski takes a long drink from his canteen, the metallic taste of iodine-treated water sharp on his tongue. If he's still alive, he knows. They all know now. The word has spread through the division.
The LVT A4 crews are no longer objects of mockery. They're sought after, requested by name, because when a rifle company gets pinned down by a bunker or a hidden machine gun nest, the Amtracs are what saves them. The Marines have learned that the ungainly walking tank can go places nothing else can, hit targets nothing else can reach, and keep fighting when conventional vehicles would have withdrawn. But the price is steep. Of the 48 LVT A4s that landed on Peleliu with the 1st Armored Amphibian Battalion, 19 have been destroyed or permanently disabled. 47 crew members are dead. 62 more are wounded. The survivors are running on empty, physically, mentally, emotionally. That night, Kowalski sleeps in the driver's compartment, his head resting on the control panel. He dreams of water, endless blue water without coral, without bullets, without screaming. He wakes before dawn to the sound of the engine starting.
Martinez has already performed the morning maintenance ritual, checking fluids, inspecting tracks, loading ammunition. Corporal Rizzo is in the turret, nervously familiarizing himself with the gun controls. "Ready?" Kowalski asks. Rizzo's voice cracks slightly. "As I'll ever be, sir." The attack on the Omerbrugel pocket begins at 0700 hours. LVT-A4 number 347 rolls forward into hell once more, its tracks churning over ground that has already been paid for in blood multiple times. The Marines advance behind it, using the Amtrac as a shield and a battering ram. The 75mm howitzer barks continuously, engaging caves, firing ports, any target that presents itself.
February 19th, 1945, 08:30 hours, off the southeastern shore of Iwo Jima. The Pacific is gunmetal gray under an overcast sky, and the wind carries the smell of sulfur from the volcanic island ahead. Lieutenant Kowalski stands in the turret of a new LVT-A4, number 512, his binoculars trained on the black beaches of Iwo Jima. The vehicle is fresh from the factory, replacing the battered 347 that finally gave up the ghost after Peleliu. But Kowalski and Martinez are the same, older now, harder. They survived Peleliu, and the Corps has rewarded them by sending them to do it again. Iwo Jima rises from the sea like a malevolent fortress. The extinct volcano Mount Suribachi dominates the south end, its slopes studded with bunkers and artillery positions. The beaches, stretching in a crescent of black volcanic sand, look deceptively peaceful, but Kowalski knows better.
Intelligence briefings estimate 21,000 Japanese defenders, dug into an underground network of tunnels and fortifications that make Peleliu look like a practice run. "Think it'll be worse than Peleliu?" Martinez asks, his voice carrying a hollow quality. He's seen too much to be optimistic. "Different," Kowalski replies. "But yeah, probably worse." The pre-invasion bombardment begins. 74 days of naval gunfire and bombing, the longest sustained bombardment in the Pacific War. Battleships, cruisers, and destroyers pound the island with thousands of tons of high explosive. Fighter bombers swoop in, dropping napalm on suspected positions. The island disappears behind a curtain of smoke and fire. It looks like nothing could survive. But the Japanese commander, General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, has learned from Peleliu. He's ordered his men to stay deep underground, to weather the storm, to let the Americans land unopposed, and then slaughter them on the beaches. No banzai charges, no wasted attacks, just methodical, scientific killing from prepared positions. At 0900 hours, the order comes. All units commence landing operations. The LVT-A4s of the 2nd Armored Amphibian Battalion hit the water first, forming a protective screen for the cargo Amtracs carrying the 4th and 5th Marine Divisions. Kowalski feels the familiar lurch as the tracks transition from ship deck to ocean. The Continental engine roars, pushing the 29-ton vehicle through the swells. Around him, 70 more armored Amtracs form assault waves, their howitzers and machine guns manned and ready. The black sand beaches grow larger. Still no fire. The invasion force is halfway to shore, and the island remains silent except for the ongoing naval bombardment.
Some of the newer Marines begin to hope. Maybe the bombardment worked. Maybe the Japanese are all dead. Kowalski knows that hope is a lie. At 200 yards from shore, the island erupts.
Every weapon the Japanese possess opens fire simultaneously. Coastal artillery, anti-tank guns, mortars, machine guns, rifles. The carefully orchestrated storm of fire is devastating. Shells bracket the Amtracs, sending up geysers of water and shrapnel. A 120mm coastal gun scores a direct hit on an LVT A4 to Kowalski's left. The vehicle simply disintegrates, reduced to burning fragments and body parts scattered across the water. "Contact! Multiple targets, all directions!" Corporal Rizzo, now a sergeant after Pelileo, screams from the turret. He's no longer the scared kid from 4 months ago. He's a veteran. Martinez already has the 75mm tracking on a bunker built into the base of Suribachi. The howitzer roars. The shell strikes home, but the fortification is massively reinforced. It barely scratches the concrete. The Japanese gun inside keeps firing, each round walking closer to Kowalski's Amtrac. The black sand is worse than coral.
It's volcanic ash, fine as powder, and the tracks sink into it like quicksand. LVT A4 number 512 hits the beach and immediately bogs down, the engine screaming as Kowalski guns the throttle. The tracks churn, throwing up rooster tails of black sand, but forward progress slows to a crawl. Around them, other Amtracs are having the same problem. Some are stuck completely, trapped targets for Japanese artillery. "Keep moving, don't stop," Kowalski screams, more to himself than anyone else. If they stop, they die. A cargo LVT 50 yards ahead takes a direct hit from a mortar. Marines bail out into the sand, but the beach is a killing ground. Machine gun fire huts them down before they can find cover. There is no cover. The beach is flat, open, exposed. The only shelter is behind the Amtracs themselves, and the Marines cluster behind the LVT A4s like baby chicks behind their mothers. Rizzo fires the howitzer in a steady rhythm. Target, fire, reload. Target, fire, reload.
He's engaging bunkers, pillboxes, artillery positions, any muzzle flash he can see. The 50 caliber machine gun hammers at infantry positions. Spent brass cascades into the crew compartment, burning Kowalski's neck when it touches bare skin. Then the anti-tank guns find their range. A 47mm round punches through the thin side armor of number 512, passing completely through the vehicle and exiting the other side without hitting anyone. It's a miracle. The next round won't miss. Kowalski jerks the steering levers, zigzagging the Amtrac across the sand, trying to be unpredictable. The engine temperature is redlining, the transmission is grinding, but they keep moving. A Japanese soldier emerges from a spider hole 10 feet away, a magnetic mine in his hands. He's trying to attach it to the hull. Martinez sees him first and traverses the 50 caliber, cutting the man nearly in half. The mine detonates harmlessly in the sand. But there are more. Dozens more.
The Japanese have infiltrated suicide teams into the beach defenses. Soldiers willing to die if they can take an Amtrac with them.
"We can't stay on this beach," Rizzo yells. "We're sitting ducks."
He's right. The LVT A4s need to get off the beach and inland, where they can maneuver, use terrain for cover, and engage the fortifications from angles the Japanese haven't pre-sighted. But the terraces, 15-foot-high walls of volcanic sand, block the way inland. The cargo Amtracs can't climb them. Only the tracked vehicles have any hope.
February 19th, 1945, 10:15 hours. Green Beach, Iwo Jima. Kowalski slams the throttle to maximum, pointing LVT A4 number 512 directly at the first terrace. The black sand wall looms 15 feet high, a nearly vertical obstacle that shouldn't be climbable. Behind him, hundreds of Marines are trapped on the beach, pinned down by withering fire from Mount Suribachi and the ridges beyond. Men are dying every second. The invasion is stalling before it even begins. "Ski, what are you doing?" Martinez shouts over the intercom, alarm clear in his voice. "Something stupid," Kowalski replies, and guns the engine harder. The nose of the Amtrac hits the terrace at full speed. The tracks claw at the loose volcanic sand, digging deep, searching for purchase. For a terrifying moment, the LVT-A4 tilts backward, the rear end lifting off the ground. They're going to flip. Kowalski can feel it.
Then the tracks catch something solid beneath the ash, volcanic rock, and the vehicle lurches upward, climbing at an impossible angle. Metal screams. The transmission howls in protest. The Continental engine sounds like it's tearing itself apart. But inch by agonizing inch, the Amtrac climbs. Rizzo and Martinez are thrown against the back of the turret as the vehicle approaches a 45-degree angle. Equipment crashes around the crew compartment. Ammunition boxes slide backward. Kowalski's foot is jammed to the floor, every muscle in his body tensed. And then they're over. The LVT-A4 crusts the terrace and crashes down onto relatively level ground beyond, the impact so violent that Kowalski bites his tongue, tasting blood. But they made it. They're the first armored vehicle off the beach. "Holy shit," Martinez breathes. "We actually did it." But there's no time to celebrate. They're now in a moonscape of shell craters and shattered bunkers, and they're alone.
The Japanese defenders who survived the naval bombardment are everywhere, emerging from underground positions. A machine gun nest 50 yards ahead opens fire. Rizzo traverses the turret and sends a 75mm high explosive round into it. The bunker collapses. Kowalski looks back at the beach through his periscope. Other LVT-A4 commanders have seen what he did. They're attempting the same climb, following the path number 512 blazed. One makes it. Another gets stuck halfway up, tracks spinning uselessly, and slides back down. A third tips too far backward and rolls, crushing its crew. But enough make it. 5 Amtracs, then 7, then a dozen are over the terrace and spreading out inland. And where the armored Amtracs go, the Marines follow. Infantry discover they can climb the terrace using the track marks as handholds and footholds. What seemed impassable becomes crossable. The beachhead begins to expand. For the next 6 hours, LVT-A4 number 512 fights across the southern approaches to Mount Suribachi. They encounter a nightmare warren of interconnected bunkers, each one covering the others with interlocking fields of fire. The 75mm howitzer fires until the barrel is too hot to touch, until Martinez has to pour water on it to prevent warping. They suppress machine gun nests so infantry can advance. They blast firing ports. They pump shells into cave entrances until the Japanese inside are buried alive or forced to retreat deeper into the tunnel system. By 1600 hours, the Amtrac is a wreck. Both tracks are damaged and running on prayer. The transmission is leaking fluid. The engine is misfiring. Bullet holes riddle the hull. The turret traverse mechanism is jammed. Rizzo has to swing the gun manually using a hand crank. They fired 147 rounds of 75mm ammunition and thousands of 50 caliber rounds. The barrel of the machine gun is burned out and needs replacement. But they're still fighting. A runner from battalion headquarters finds them in a crater, catching their breath while Martinez performs emergency maintenance. The kid can't be more than 18, his utilities clean, his eyes wide at the carnage surrounding him. "Lieutenant Kowalski? Colonel Johnson wants to see you at the command post." Kowalski follows the runner back to a hastily dug bunker near the beach. Colonel Johnson, a square-jawed veteran with 3 Purple Hearts, is bent over a map table, surrounded by his staff. He looks up when Kowalski enters, and there's something in his eyes. Respect. Maybe even awe.
Lieutenant, what you did today, climbing that terrace, probably saved this invasion. Every infantry commander on this island is asking for LVTA-4 support. They're calling you people Suribachi busters. He pauses, then adds quietly, but I need to know, how many vehicles do you have left that can still fight? Kowalski does the mental math.
Of the 70 LVTA-4s that landed, 23 are destroyed. 18 more are mechanically disabled. That leaves 29 operational, but most of those are hanging on by a thread. 30, sir. Maybe less by tomorrow. Johnson nods slowly, unsurprised. Then we use what we have while we have it. The Japanese have turned this island into a fortress. We're going to need every gun we can field. He looks at Kowalski directly. The skeptics said the LVTA-4 was a liability, a waste of resources. Today you proved them wrong. But the fight for Iwo Jima is just beginning. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Kowalski returns to his crew as the sun sets over the black beaches, turning the volcanic sand the color of dried blood. In the distance, Mount Suribachi looms against the sky, still unbroken, still deadly. The island is barely secured at all. The Marines hold only a narrow beachhead. 3 more weeks of fighting lie ahead. The meat grinder, Turkey Knob.
The amphitheater. Names that will become synonymous with slaughter. But tonight, exhausted Marines sleep in the shelter of LVTA-4 hulls, trusting the ungainly walking tanks to protect them. The vehicles the men once mocked have become their salvation. And in the years to come, when historians study the amphibious assaults of World War II, they will point to Peleliu and Iwo Jima as the proving grounds where the LVTA-4 transformed from experimental curiosity into essential weapon of war. The Amtrac crews ask for no glory. They want only to survive long enough to see the war end. But their legacy is already written in the black volcanic sand of Iwo Jima and the white coral of Peleliu. Written in the Marines who lived because a bathtub with a gun could go where nothing else could, fight when nothing else would, and keep moving forward when retreat meant death. Lieutenant Michael Kowalski leans against the scarred hull of number 512, listening to Martinez curse softly as he tries to patch yet another leak. Somewhere in the darkness, a wounded Marine calls for a corpsman. Artillery rumbles in the distance. Tomorrow, they will climb back into the Amtrac and do it all again. The walking tank has crossed the Pacific, and it has earned its place in history.